Alrighty, so I have today's guest live on video. This is somebody who I have been fortunate enough to connect with in the lovely throes of NBA Twitter. This is Avery Owens. He's a graphic designer for Fan Duel. So go ahead and say hello, do a little intro if you wouldn't mind for the audience.
What's up, everybody? As our lovely host just mentioned, yes, I'm a graphic designer for Fan Duel. I've been a graphic designer now for about 10 years. I started getting into like sports design about 3 years ago now. Been working for Fan Duel for about a full year now, so it's been a wild ride since I joined, especially considering where sports betting is going as a business in this country.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about how you worked your way to your role with FanDuel and kind of how that position came about for you, and your role currently.
To be honest, I was between jobs. I applied to FanDuel. They got back to me. We did the whole interview dance. I thought it was a very interesting company in terms of how they were positioned, especially with sports betting, on the cusp of becoming, a very common thing based on, its history in the past couple of years in this country.
Right.
Yeah, so I basically came on as a junior designer. Uh, and it's been really a interesting experience. I've gotten to work on a bunch of different projects. Gotten to use kind of all my design muscles in the process.
I like it.
Yeah,
I like flexing on them, I
yeah,
bet.
pretty much.
So since your time, you said you've been there about a year, is that correct?
Yep.
Okay, so since your time with the company, what has been kind of a project that's been, I guess, most important to you or something that has been, I guess, close to your heart, so to speak?
Hmm. It's a good question. I would have to say, I guess the project that sticks out the most in my head is actually two animations that I did for our App Store displays, actually. So if you go to the iOS store, this is a shameless plug, by the way. If you go to the iOS store and
Go
you look
for
up
it.
the FanDuel Sportsbook app and the FanDuel app, you'll see some animations that should come up, kind of guiding you through what you can do in the app and everything. And I actually put those together, and it was kind of a labor of love because I was able to work with multiple teams, kind of show the app in a dynamic way and kind of, again, flex my design muscles when it came to using motion and using typography and making it more than just a static screen saying download our app now.
Right, a little bit more interactive for the
Yep.
people. Awesome. I like it. So I know obviously I don't know who's really listening and who's familiar with your work and some of the art that you've done with FanDuel, but if you I mean, have you had a chance to meet athletes? And if you have, what has been or who has been a really cool person that you've been able to connect with via doing graphic art of them?
Unfortunately, I haven't had a chance to meet any
Uh-huh.
athletes just yet, but that's definitely on my bucket list.
If you could meet any athlete that you would like to do or have done art of, who would it be?
Hmm. So I think if I had a chance to meet an athlete through this job, it would probably be an NBA player. We do a lot through NBA. We do a lot through NFL as well. I mean, meeting Saquon Barkley would be pretty dope. RJ Barrett, just a couple of the young stars in the New York sports scene. Being that I grew up in New York, so kind of getting that hometown feel would be
It,
awesome.
you're a long-suffering Knicks fan, right?
Long suffering, very, yeah.
Same
Too long.
long-suffering Sixers fan. We can relate.
Hmm. But at least your team is showing up for you guys now.
Yeah, sometimes, man, we lose some of those games that we feel like we go into and we should be winning them, and then we come out of it like we don't know what happened.
Can't relate. Can't relate.
You mentioned a little bit ago, sports betting was obviously illegal up until 2018. I think it was like May sometime in 2018, when the Supreme Court lifted the ban on sports betting.
Mm-hmm.
So, how has that changed the opportunities for graphic designers in the sports industry? Not just obviously with FanDuel, but sports betting as a whole. How has that changed the game for graphic designers?
That's a great question. I think it opens up that I think in the sports design realm there is kind of a preconceived notion that you're not working in sports until you work specifically with a team, which I
Right.
think kind of not true. I think as long as you work within the realm of sports itself, within the experience of sports, you're in the sports business. And I think Sports betting is, no exception to that. I think just like anything, like going to a live game, sports betting is an experience, an extension of the sports experience. I
Right.
mean, yeah, there's money, you throw money into it and everything, but I mean, what don't you throw money into when you go to like an arena or a field or anything like that? And I think that making mobile and offsite sports betting, legal in a lot of these states is opening up people to experiencing something they've never experienced before with a sport, or
Right.
that there's that extra level now of depth where it's like, all right, like let me pay more attention to, jump ball. Let me pay more attention to kickoff or, overtime, double overtime, those kinds of things. There's more of another level of experience to that now.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I agree. One, for me personally, I think that I knew nothing about sports betting. Like as a fan, I'm somebody who, when people talk about these numbers and the pluses and the minuses and all that stuff, I'm kind of like a little bit
Yeah.
lost. But for me, it's something that, when I see the graphics that go along with it, and like, even some of the stuff you've shared on your personal page, it's something that it kind of draws me in, because I'm like, wait, what's this dope graphical about? Who is this? Click on it, and it's coming from Fan Duel, or there's all kinds of other, betting sites out there.
Mhm.
I don't obviously name them too much since I have you on.
It's okay. I mean, you can mention DraftKings because obviously DraftKings is a friendly rival.
Right.
I would consider it like, for my nerds out there, I would consider like the relationship between Sonic and Knuckles. You know what I mean? It's like we're not enemies, but we have a friendly competition
Yeah,
as
yeah.
far as being pioneers in the space in this country specifically. So there's
Yeah.
a lot of respect for what they do, especially when it comes to creative. Um, yeah, but I would say what really shapes a lot of what I do is like again, how can I get that first click on something, like whether it's like a game that somebody hasn't played before, like even a bet that somebody hasn't put down before. How do you illustrate it in a way where it's like, okay, this looks interesting, now let me see what it's all about. And it's kind of like catching your audience and making sure that you hold them captive to what you're trying to basically sell them. It's a service, basically like they're able to bet it's a service.
Right, right. And it's kind of like you said about paying attention to the specific things like a jump ball. It's more or less, okay, somebody is a Bucks fan, but then when they see a graphic, like who do you think would win a jump ball between Giannis and Joel Embiid? Little things like that, where yeah, obviously Giannis might be your favorite player, or the Bucks might be your favorite team, but if for some reason you think that Joel Embiid would beat out Giannis in a jump
Yeah.
ball, you might be more inclined to choose
Oh yeah.
against favorites are, or pick things that you wouldn't normally, like you said, pay attention to. So
Mhm.
I think like you touched on, for me as somebody who has no background in sports betting, that's something that has kind of helped open the door and help little basic little tidbits like that somebody can bet on and get immersed in sports betting in general.
And honestly, like we at FanDuel, we definitely want to encourage responsible gaming. Like if you have a problem, if you think you're developing a problem, then definitely you should seek the right steps to make sure you enjoy what you're doing and that it's not something that's hazardous to yourself or the ones you love. But yeah, it's really another way to just get involved and think about a lot of sports that the way you never thought about them before. And
Yeah.
you even learn stuff on top of that. You pick up certain things, certain stat lines, certain things about different players that you might admire that you didn't know before.
Right, right. I agree. So, and to kind of piggyback off my last question a little bit, how do graphic designers like yourself enhance the effectiveness or the reach of a company like FanDuel? I mean, I kind of touched on it just a second ago about, a graphic, Joel Embiid versus Giannis and going head to head and things like that. But how does somebody like you bring to life, so to speak, like a betting setup?
So without going too deep in like how we do things, basically, it's like um, my department, creative, is charged with basically creating visuals and collateral and things that go out to new members and members that we're trying to acquire. So it's more about what do the people want to see?
Yeah.
Like we're not going to have a graphic going up for a matchup in like LA Clippers Lakers, when we're trying to cater to a Philly audience or even a New York audience. It's not going to go like that. And it's the same for a couple of our initiatives online on the
Right.
app itself. If we think that there's going to be a big game in Philly, between, like, say, the Nets and the Philly Sixers, excuse me. We're going to go for that, especially in states where betting is new. We want, people in, I'm sure people in all these states want to try it out. It's just obviously getting over that hump of how taboo is it them. Oh, I'm betting. This is, this is
Yeah.
something new. This is something that maybe, my parents, my grandparents told me is, immoral technically, but it's really about getting to your audience and kind of capturing your audience's imagination through these pictures, through, how you phrase your copy and tweets and everything like that.
Yeah, definitely. So you touched a little bit just then in your response on the various cities, and you did a piece recently where you paired up the graphics of a specific city and the major sports teams there with a
Mm-hmm.
major hip hop icon. And of course, I was so heartbroken because our hip hop icon in Portland also happens to be our point guard. So
Yeah.
Portland wouldn't really have a good hip hop side of that graphic, but talk a little bit about how hip hop has influenced your graphic designs with NBA, NFL, MLB, and also those major metropolitan cities, and kind of
Mm-hmm.
how hip hop and athletics connect to each other.
Mm-hmm. That's a great question. I'll try to keep it contained without rambling. So first off, that project was a collaboration with me and the lead designer at the University of Indiana, Brandon Spawn,
Oh
very
wow.
talented guy. This is a great project. I think we both came from a place of loving hip hop and just rap in general. And, we hit it off. Like, basically, I DM'd him one time and I was just like, hey, this is awesome work. He was like, oh, thanks, man. And we started talking about, like, I think it was 21 Savage at the time. And we just started going, spiraling down, the rabbit hole into the whole hip hop conversation. And that project was birthed from that. And the root of the project is that we wanted to really just kind of emulate these athletes and these hip hop stars that bring out the culture of these different cities. That, like, when you go to another country and you talk about either star from hip hop or basketball, what name comes up? Like, like Houston, Travis Scott and James Harden, or LA, Kobe and Kendrick. Like, these big names come up, and
Yep.
they really transcend, just the
Right.
American culture, go worldwide basically. Yeah. And I think in terms of hip hop, it's kind of the same thing. You have these larger than life cultural icons that transcend, just America's culture, and around the world, a lot of these people that I look up to are, respected.
Right.
I come from Mount Vernon, New York, so there's a lot of hip hop lineage there. So I think just coming up as a hip hop head, it's really cool now to see how hip hop has infiltrated a lot of these sports, especially football, especially basketball. And
Absolutely.
I think it's, the sky's the limit, basically, to coin a term.
Yeah, I agree with
Yeah.
you. I think that it's interesting. I actually have a playlist that I might end up sharing someday if I can get it to kind of correlate with something that I'm talking about. But I have a playlist where pretty much every song or every title of every song on the playlist has to do with sports in some way. Like there's
Mhm.
a song titled Westbrook. Obviously, there's D Rose by Lil Pump.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah.
just different songs like that. And it's so true what you said about how they both just influence each other so much. I mentioned Drake. Obviously, Kawhi is now with LA, but
Hmm.
Drake and Kawhi were so synonymous to one another last year when they were doing
Hmm.
their championship run. Obviously, now Serge Ibaka with his
Yeah,
art pieces and his
yeah.
fashion.
The scarves, yeah.
But again, that kind of turns its head back to your industry a little bit because there's so many, I mean, like Bleacher Report, House of Highlights,
Mhm.
there's all these different media sites that are covering these athletes, but then they have so much to do with art and
Hmm.
the graphics of how the cities connect with the players. So I personally thought that piece that you did with Brandon was awesome. Like I said, I was a little heartbroken that
Yeah.
my people weren't accounted for, but I get it. I get it.
Yeah, we thought about it at one point too. That's the thing. We had thought about including Dame, and that was the problem. It was like, okay, well, it literally would just be Dame. Like, there wouldn't be really an opposite, like hip hop star. There wouldn't be an opposite athlete. He's the all in one, which could be its own piece in a way. But yeah.
True. I was just gonna say, well, if you guys ever have a need for an alter ego piece and you guys have a chance to collab again, you can keep it in mind because he has gone, out of his way to let people know. Damian Lillard has gone out of his way to let people know that Dame Dalla and Damian Lillard are two different people.
I believe that.
And I think obviously, I think off the top of my head of Eminem when you think of
definitely
with yes, you have their mainstream persona, but then they kind of have like an alter ego also, that is like a third identity, so to speak. So I kind of think Dame Dollar emulates that in a little bit. But you have some big news. You're about to be a dad, literally any second now. We've kind of had
any minute, pretty much.
Kind of had to zigzag our interview times just so that we can make sure that you're attentive enough in case an emergency happens. But how will being a dad affect you as an artist, not just as a graphic designer, but obviously as someone who appreciates art? Like, how has that emulated itself? I know you shared it a little bit, but you did a little bit of a graphic design piece to announce when the baby is coming. So how has that influenced your design and how you look at art as a dad?
Well, I think the baby will. There's going to be a little bit of give and take. There are going to be times where the baby will inspire me, beyond reason, and then there will be times where the baby, because it's a baby, will drain me of all my energy. I probably will have no inspiration. So it's kind of like I think it's going to be a balance, and I have to figure out where we fit in that balance. And obviously, there are going to be times where I want to design all the time, but there'll be, for example, like 10 o'clock probably, and I need to put the baby to bed instead of hopping on my laptop. And it's definitely going to be a learning experience, which I'm kind of excited for. But I am kind of also excited, not to be a nerd hipster, but just to see her beautiful face, how I might be inspired in new ways that I didn't think were even possible yet. So
absolutely. In the girl dad sentiment that Kobe so gracefully left us with, how do you think that being a dad of a daughter specifically will influence, let's say females in your art, like Megan Rapinoe, Sue Bird? I know you've done pieces recently of Maya Moore, and you did Brianna Stewart. Will you be paying more attention to those types of things now that you're a girl dad, or has that been kind of something that you've always tried to give kudos to?
I'll be honest. I think it was something that not always. I'll be 100% transparent. I think since like beginning of college, I started paying more attention to women in sports, just because I was like, I could definitely get whipped in a basketball game by any WNBA player. Like, who are we kidding? Like, but I think growing up, is just admiring all these players, like Mia Hamm for soccer, Lisa Leslie with the WNBA, the inception of the WNBA, which was groundbreaking in itself. All the Olympic players that have played throughout the Olympics for America. I think these are all role models that one day my daughter's going to look at me and ask, "Who is that, Daddy?" I'm going to be proud to tell her this is a hero, this is an amazing athlete. This is somebody you should definitely look up more of. Wikipedia, Google, whatever's around when she's older, like, please look them up, and I'll back her up. And if she wants to pursue being an athlete, I will 100% support her, whatever she wants to do. And if anything she wants to do, I'll 100% support her.
I was going to say, I'm sure just as much as you would support her being an artist, or I know you
pretty
guys
much, yeah.
Musicians.
I mean, as long as she's not like killing people or stealing for a living, I'm cool. I think.
Absolutely. I second that. Alrighty.
Yeah.
So just to close up the interview, we're gonna focus on March Madness. Obviously, we're in March now, and the big dance is slowly coming upon us. So we have to get your official champion prediction, or at best, if you don't have a favorite, at best, championship game matchup.
Oh, jeez, that's a good question. I'll be honest, I haven't been paying this much attention to college basketball season because of the impending pregnancy and everything. So I'd say is
Do you have a favorite NCAA team? I don't think we've ever really talked about NCAA.
Yeah. But no, I mean, I'll be honest, I'm definitely on the bandwagon with the women's Oregon team.
Heck,
definitely.
heck yeah.
Um, Also, I mean, obviously it's contradictory, but I've always, watched UConn obviously because of the proximity.
Right,
Um,
right.
UConn men are actually doing well, but I don't think they'll go far if they get the tournament. But we'll see how that goes.
You know what? One big surprising team this year is the fact that UNC men's team is completely out of the top 25,
Yeah, yeah.
which is definitely out of character for them, but they are definitely a young team and with quite a bit of inexperience. So hopefully this year kind of helps them figure it out next year and they can get back into the conversation that they're normally in. But the person that I interviewed before you was Derek Franklin with Heat Check Gaming, and he predicted Memphis for the men's team.
Mm,
So would
okay.
you would you agree with that? Disagree? What are your
I
thoughts?
think I think it's possible from what I've heard and seen. I think it's possible. I think we might have another tournament. What was it? I think it was like 2 seasons ago, maybe 3 seasons ago, where it was just like brackets were just being destroyed left and right from the jump. I think last season was pretty crazy too, but like I specifically remember like it was 2 or 3 years ago. There was just like a total like battle royal basically like with all the different teams that were winning over their odds and everything.
Right. Was it two? I can't remember if it was 2 or 3 years ago when the 20 seed ousted the one
Yeah.
seed. Was it Bonaventure? Am I remembering correctly?
Yeah, it was like Bonaventure. It was some random university that was in one of those states that's like, oh, it's not even a basketball state, but okay. Like,
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Well, I mean, I think that just kind of speaks to how unpredictable the tournament can be. I know Baylor just got upset the
yep.
other night by Kansas, and I know they were a favorite. We just talked about Memphis. I've heard
Mhm.
some major analysts with ESPN and Sports Illustrated are predicting Memphis to win it all.
Mhm.
So I don't know. It could be curious. Obviously, Duke is my favorite. If
Mhm.
Oregon's men's team can put up a fight and make it to at least the Final Four, again, I think they might have a chance. So we'll see. It's definitely going to be interesting.
Yeah.
Um, but I think that's it. I think that's all we
All right.
have. I really appreciate your time. I know, like I
Thank
said,
you.
topsy turvy getting you on with the
Yeah.
impending arrival of your baby girl, but congratulations in advance to you and the wife. I appreciate it, and maybe again in a few months or so we can get you back on. You can talk about fatherhood.
Certainly, if you want, yeah. Thank you for having me. I'll definitely come back on. This is cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Thank you, and have a great day.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.